Hello and welcome back to Hawk Talk. After a brief hiatus, we're happy to bring you back and continue to introduce you to the head coaches and personalities that make up the Monmouth University Athletics Department. Welcome back this evening, everyone. I'm Eddie Acapinti, happy to be with you yet again, and welcome in our guest here this evening as tonight we head to the lanes and help me welcome in the head bowling coach at Monmouth University, and we say good evening to Karen Grygiel. Coach, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well, thank you, Eddie. How are you?
I am doing quite well, thank you. All things considered, there's been so many announcements and so much news coming out, seemingly within the last few weeks. But thankfully, like you, all as well. And before we start any conversation involving bowling and any conversation involving your time at Monmouth, we first just want to check in. And since this whole situation has come about, how have you been, and how is everything going with you?
I'm doing pretty well. I actually was down in Florida for a few months once I got my athletes settled and, back home, and kind of just stuck around here to make sure, everything was in order. My parents live down on the west coast of Florida, so I went to visit them and stay with them and quarantine with them because they're kind of in a cute little fishing town and there's not a lot of people. So it was very peaceful, really nice. And the internet service was great, so I was able to still keep working. So that was a bonus. So that was really nice. So I just got back a few weeks ago, and I'm ready to get back on campus and make the best of this upcoming season.
Yeah, and that's been so much in the news, and you really can't go on social media or anywhere without getting news about upcoming seasons or upcoming starts of school years. This evening, we'll have a conversation with Karen about the Monmouth bowling program, and she's entering already her 11th season coming up, which is what I was looking it up. I had to kind of do a double take how it's already been 11 years since Monmouth University brought women's bowling to the athletics profile. If you have a question for Karen, please submit it into our Facebook live chat, and I'll make sure to relay that question over to Coach. And Coach, let's start there. Do you ever sit back and think that those last 10 years have literally flown by as you get ready to enter your 11th season?
Definitely. It's still an odd number to think about. It feels like yesterday I was just starting. So much has happened, and our program has grown in so many ways. And I'm really proud of the progress we've made over the last 11 years, or 10 years rather, going into our 11th year, and just honored to be part of Monmouth and bring bowling to Monmouth. It's been really cool experience so far.
There's been a theme on a few of our conversations involving yourself, and a few, I think at this point, months ago, involving the head football coach, Kevin Callahan, Brian Fisher, another one, to a different degree, Matt Nunnally, but a theme of coaches who have literally started their own programs or brought programs back to the university. So my curiosity, Karen, is there. As a first-time head coach of a first-time program, did it compare to your expectations to it? I'm sure that so much goes into building a program. When you took over not too far removed after college, how kind of quickly did you get up to speed with maybe some of the peers of other head coaches of yours here at Monmouth University?
That's a great question. So I was really fortunate in the sense that during my time as a collegiate athlete, I've always had a very outgoing personality. So I knew so many of the coaches from being, only 1 year removed from being a student athlete. I graduated from Vanderbilt in 2009, that I was able to make a lot of connections really quick and find mentors really quick within our sport, within coaching. And I still screwed up. Don't get me wrong. Like, when you're 23, just out of college, starting a brand new program, you're going to mess up. You're going to say and do the wrong things here and there. No compliance violations, but you're just you're fresh off the boat, so to speak, and you're just really raw. And it was hard. Like, the first couple of years are really hard for sure, because you're trying to figure out who you want to be as a leader and what you want the culture of the program to be. So I was really lucky in that sense that I had so many great people to rely on. The bowling community is the most amazing community to be a part of. It's so special, and it's so interconnected and intertwined in really fun ways and really neat ways. And so it was definitely interesting. My first, I'll never forget my first week. So actually, Coach Malia, the women's golf coach now, she was my sports supervisor. So she, brought me through the interview process when I first interviewed for the job, and then took me under her wing when she was the SWA here at Monmouth. And she was fantastic. And, I'll never forget when she came in and she handed me this big giant black binder, because not everything was kind of online or digital yet. It was just regular forms. It was like, here you go. And it said coach's handbook on the side. And this thing was enormous, probably almost the size of my head. And just being like, oh no, like what have I gotten myself into? Yeah, I was so lucky too to have her as my very first sports supervisor in SWA, and so happy to have her back.
Yeah, and then things come full circle now as a colleague and fellow head coach for you. And what think back to those early days of the bowling program, at Monmouth. Didn't have the tremendous facility that now the program can call home, and some of the different challenges. But when you think back to those first couple of years, what are the really key memories that helped set the groundwork for a bowling program that is now just over a decade old?
I think what's really, one thing that was really neat in the beginning that I do want to bring up is we actually were practicing at first on Fort Monmouth's base when it was still open. So that was a pretty neat experience. I think what was really neat was when I started the program, there was already a club team here, and they were just very passionate. I had some really wonderful young women in the program, and then a transfer from FDU. So Ricky Deldano, Lauren Lella, Emily Fiore, Lauren Frankowski. These are just some names of some initial athletes that we had in our program that really, they really just were so passionate about the sport, and to this day are still bowling and competing. In fact, her she's married now, but Lauren Frankowski, I'll refer to her as her maiden name since that's what she was in our roster as. She actually won the Monmouth County Women's Championship. It was last year, and so it was cool to see her, and she has a baby now, and it's the bowling community is just so great. And I think those initial members, we didn't have scholarships to start, very similar to many of the sports that kind of were ground up. And I think that their passion was just so key in starting and creating that foundation for us and propelling future recruits and the momentum that we were going to have moving forward.
And you touched on a few points there that our first question comes in about. And if you do have a question for Karen Grygiel, please submit it into our Facebook live chat. And also want to remind you, if you have missed any of our previous Hawk Talks, hard to believe this is number 24 already this evening. If you've missed any of the previous 23, there's a variety of ways to get caught up. You could go on MonmouthHawks.com. The Hawk Talk link there has all of the previous episodes. You can also go on our YouTube page at youtube.com/MonmouthHawks. And in the video tab right here on Facebook has all of the previous episodes that led us to this evening's conversation with Coach Grygiel. And now with that, we dive into the questions. And Lynn from Jackson is checking in this evening. And we want to thank Lynn for checking out Hawk Talk, a regular contributor to the series, and is going to take us, Coach, right into the heart of coaching, and wants to know your opinion about having are the advantages of having a bowling alley on campus, and if there are any other programs that Monmouth competes with that has the great facilities that Monmouth University has.
I have to say, Eddie, we are so fortunate. Our lane donor, the Sinello family, are just amazing people in the bowling industry, and it is definitely an advantage from a recruiting standpoint. And it's an extreme advantage during the current climate and the current situation that we're facing with COVID. I think that being able to just come in and practice and having that facility is actually probably a key reason why so many of our entire team is returning. Even though we just announced this week that classes will be going remote, and we still don't even know what our season's going to look like yet because decisions haven't been made about winter sports. Every single one of my athletes wants to come back because they just can't wait to hit our lanes and just, get back to practicing and training and have that privacy to do that. When you have to train in a public facility, as you mentioned in our first couple of years, training off campus, you're dealing with the open public, you're dealing with a proprietor who, has leagues and has events going on, and the scheduling can be difficult. So having that space to give our athletes the flexibility to come in and practice and the opportunity to come in and practice, in a very comfortable and high-tech environment is really great. So definitely a huge advantage.
And if you want to look even further into the tremendous facility that Coach just described, if you go to monmouthhawks.com/facilities, that's where you can read more about the Sinello Family Bowling Center. I still remember the ribbon cutting for that, kind of like it was yesterday, and to be able to have such generous people, Karen, and such caring people about the bowling program here. I know that's something that you're quite passionate about, and being able to work with that family, it was truly remarkable to make the facility come true.
For sure, the Sinellos, like I said, are just amazing people. They're so involved in the world of bowling and have such a passion for it. You know, you just the first time I met Pat, and we sat down for lunch and had a conversation, like we immediately connected, both being from New Jersey and his connection at Monmouth, but in other little ways too. You know, we were both only children. We both, just really had a passion for the sport and are constantly, thinking of ways to grow the sport. And even whenever I'm down in Florida visiting my parents, luckily they are close by, so I get to visit the Sinellos as well, and it's been great. So yeah.
And it's been great having them as well to be a part of the Monmouth family. And again, that great facility that Coach talked about, it's connected to the Ocean First Bank Center. And if you go on that facilities page, really does detail the specifics to it, especially if you're interested in coming to Monmouth and you're interested in coming to Monmouth to bowl for Coach Grygiel. The questions continue to come in for Karen, so we go back to the questions. And Joe Compagni checking in here this evening. Coach Joe, we appreciate you checking out our Hawk Talk. And you just mentioned, Coach, the original home of Monmouth bowling was Fort Monmouth. Coach Joe wants to know, is there any possibility potentially to hosting an event on Fort Monmouth as that facility goes through its own renovations? But we know about the facility on campus that you have, but would you ever go back to the lanes at Fort Monmouth if the opportunity arose to host an event?
Sure, I think that would be amazing. Depending on when it's ready, we would love to do that. It was a great facility to practice in. And the settee area and the space, assuming that they're going to keep the spacing the same, would actually be really conducive to hosting an event during a COVID environment. So, it would be great if we could go back there and host. That'd be awesome.
You've mentioned, Coach, a few times now with the bowling community and the extended bowling family, and you just referenced obviously the current situation with the pandemic that the country and the world is facing right now. You know, so much is in the news about what happened and what is happening with college football and with other sports involving with the current climate. But now take us into that bowling world. You've mentioned that great bowling community a few times. With the pandemic happening, what has been the conversations among you and the other head coaches, and how is that bowling family reacting to what we currently face?
So we actually, when everything first started, our coaches association is very tight knit, very supportive, and even the coaches within the MEAC. So we're an affiliate member of the MEAC conference. We have group chats going constantly. We had twice a week Zoom calls when everything first kind of hit, just not even just to brainstorm, but to support each other. And I think that's something that's, really special in our sport, is that we can have an entire country kind of coaches come together twice a week to just kind of spitball ideas and support each other and share, what's going on in our states. Obviously, bowling centers are not open yet across the entire country. So state by state, student athletes and coaches are encountering different environments. And so that's been something that's on pretty much surrounding our constant conversation. And in addition to that, I actually hopped on a webinar early when this first hit, pretty early, with some of the local proprietors. So the BPAA, which is the Bowling Proprietors Association of America, they have welcomed me into their New Jersey chapter since we have the facility on campus, and so they included me in a lot of their conversations and what opening up would look like, being that we do host an event every year in New Jersey. So again, that community is just really strong. And then, I also want to mention, going back to that community, we have another Monmouth alum who owns one of those local centers. So Ocean Lanes, where I actually grew up bowling, is owned by Jay Meyer, and he is a Monmouth alum. and his oldest daughter is one of my best friends, lifelong best friends. So again, that tight knit community.
Yeah, you mentioned it a few times. It's the theme that seems to unite not only the bowling community, but the Monmouth community as well, that tie with him being an alum. As the questions continue to come in for Karen Grygiel, let's go back to those questions. And this evening, Jeff is in Oceanport. Jeff, we appreciate you watching our Hawk Talk episode. And Coach, he wants you to now shift our focus and our conversation to this year's team. There's recruits that are coming in from all over, New York, close, but also Australia and Costa Rica. What will each of these recruits add to the program, and how is the team doing in this current time?
So the team is doing fantastic. Given the current climate and the environment and the challenges that they've been facing, I couldn't be more proud of them and more honored to be their coach, because they have handled this with such grace and commitment and resilience. And when everything first happened, we had to move pretty quickly because I have a team that is scattered all over the country and the world, and we wanted to make sure we got everyone home and everyone home safely. So once the dust settled from that sort of chaos that we had to just manage and get everyone home, and we were able to start getting on our Zoom calls and checking in. I mean, I'm so proud of what they did with their GPAs. I mean, they pulled their academics up. We already had a very strong GPA, and now it's just, I mean, it's incredible. They're just such great young women, and I'm so lucky to have them. And then even our incoming group recruits, our current roster have like immediately took them under their wing and was reaching out, and then we are about to have our second full team, including the incoming freshman Zoom call this tomorrow night, actually. So that has been really fantastic. Just the connection and the communication has been so amazing. And Jordan Troutman, our women's lacrosse coach, kind of mentioned in one of her talks about how you've reached a really great point in your team culture when you can kind of like take a step back and let them lead and let them and go forth. And I really feel that's what's happened. We've just had this amazing group come together. And at one point, I was doing the Zoom calls every single week because I just wanted to check in, make sure they were okay and everything. And at one point, my seniors were like, "Coach, we're good. Like, we got this. Like, we're gonna be okay. Like, we can tone it back. Like, we know you're there for us. We got this." And we're all staying connected. So it'll be okay. And I think that was such an amazing moment for me as a coach to have that shift happen and have that culture created now where they can lead themselves. And I think that's, again, a goal that I share with Jordan, which is to kind of be the one that can kind of sit back a little bit and just be there, as a resource and let them lead the way.
You mentioned the team taking ownership, as you just said, and that culture starting to really build. I think that's been one of the most impressive things, not just with your program and with the student athletes, but with all of the students at Monmouth, that they, when faced with that challenge of learning remotely in the middle of March and kind of thrown into the different situation, how they responded. You mentioned how your team responded to that. And I know you mentioned you went to Vanderbilt, but you were a Monmouth graduate student as well. So as someone who has gone through Monmouth academically, as I did, I know you would probably share in my sentiment of your program, student athletes and students as a whole. Really was remarkable what they were able to do and how quickly they were able to adjust to these ever-changing circumstances.
Absolutely. I mean, over the last 10 years, I've been able to create relationships with faculty and staff all across campus. And it was incredible, like you said, the turnover, how quick everyone adapted. And I, again, going back to my student athletes, I have student athletes scattered all over the country, all over the world in many different time zones. So you're talking California, Hawaii, Australia, and they were resilient. They adapted. They reached out to their professors, and the professors worked with them. And it really was amazing just how fast we were. We didn't skip a beat. And I attribute that to the great community we have, as you said, at Monmouth.
If you have a question for Karen Grygiel, as so many of you already have, please submit it into our Facebook live chat. And Coach kind of leaves off there with a very interesting point. And I'm curious about it. You've mentioned the tight-knit bowling community, and then you've mentioned where some of your athletes are coming from. And it's not just regional, it's national and international. So have you seen a growth in the game over the time that you've been a student athlete and a head coach? Has there always been the influx of international student athletes, or is it more prevalent now than, for example, say your time at Vanderbilt?
Oh, I mean, from when I was an athlete to now, we've more than doubled our membership. So, double the amount of NCAA women's bowling programs. NCAA women's bowling started in late 90s, early 2000s. First championship, I think, was, 2001, 2002. Forgive me if I'm a little off on that. But, we're still a very young emerging sport when you think about it, and we are still multi-divisional, but we've seen tremendous growth. So just the amount of opportunities for young women in our sport, watching that growth happen has been really rewarding and amazing because I know what it did for me. I mean, it changed my life. It changed my life. And I think it's just such an honor to be part of that process and to be able to coach and help change other women's lives and give them the opportunity to bowl collegiately, but also just get an amazing education. I don't know where I would have been, if had it not been for bowling. So I really appreciate that. And like I said, we now have automatic qualifiers and we've increased our selection. It's just been amazing to watch that happen and then watch so many more young women get the opportunity to pursue their dreams.
Well, to that point, our next question comes in regards to that. And our next question comes in. Sue is in Spring Lake tonight, and we appreciate her checking out our Hawk Talk. And she wants to know, during this time, obviously the challenges, like you mentioned, bowling centers are closed. It's difficult right now if you're a prospective student athlete to get recruited. So Sue's question, Karen, to you is, if you were a prospective student athlete right now, you as the head coach, what would you want them to be doing? What can someone do to make themselves recruitable during this time when indeed they can't get inside a bowling alley?
The best thing to do is reach out to coaches and try to schedule a time, pending what year you're in school and what you're permitted to do in terms of communication, and see if you can set up a Zoom. Just try and talk with the coach. Don't get too wordy in your emails. One thing I see recruits do is they send this giant email of every accomplishment they've ever had, and I think that can be really overwhelming. And I've heard a lot of coaches over the years say, listen, if the email's too long, like I don't even go there. So keep it simple and keep it genuine. That would be my greatest advice. And I realize that you may not be able to get the lanes to share video, which is obviously an important part in the recruiting process. Usually is sort of a bowling resume and video and things of that nature. There's so many great female professionals on social media that are showing fun ways to do drill work at home or in their backyards. So I would say go follow them, take a look at their videos, and maybe see if you can do some yourself and share that. It shows creativity, it shows passion, commitment, and sometimes you can even see just from little drill work, little things that you can pick up in a person's game. So that would be my advice.
And advice that comes from a coach who, in her time as a student athlete, was a national champion. So, Coach, let's go back. Take us back to 2007 at Vanderbilt. And what was it like to be a member and a very valuable contributor to a national championship team?
Man, it was an honor, and it was so surreal. I think that sometimes I still don't believe it happened, which I know sounds really cliche and corny, but it's true. It's true. It was such an interesting year. Our team came together and we had some challenges that we faced and we overcame them. And I'll never forget. And I love sharing this story. So forgive me, everyone that's watching that's heard me say this, because I even say this a lot in my recruiting. But there were these two young women on our team who were part of the first program, or the first year the program started. So they were walk-ons. And then, my class was the first recruited class. And they stayed with the team and they were at the national championship with us. And, we were all sophomores and two freshmen, or seven of us. And we were so nervous. And these two upperclassmen that were walk-ons that had just stayed with the team had been like big sisters to us. Mallory and Christine and Ashley, actually all three of them were like big sisters to us. And they kind of like got us to calm down. And in the qualifying, we shot a Baker 300 actually at that event too. which a lot of people don't know about. But like, I mean, they came up with this adjective game to calm us down because we were just getting so nervous and tense because we are so young and just wanted to win so bad, so talented too. But so basically, every time we got a strike, they would give us an adjective, and they went through the alphabet. So A was for amazing, and I mean they were more creative at that. They were, but it was like so silly. But those two had, or those three rather, had such an impact on our success, and I love sharing that story in the recruiting process to explain that it doesn't matter whether or not you're throwing the ball, you can still be a great force and a great game changer for the team. And we build our culture around that story actually, in terms of just understanding any role that contributes to the success of the program is a great role. So whether you're holding a clipboard and doing the dot sheet, whether you're doing our little iPad for our statistics and tracking ball motion, whether you're going and getting waters and snacks because we compete for 5-6 hours at a time, 3 days in a row for a regular season tournament. So all those little key roles, or whether you're doing a hangman just to get everyone to calm down because we're playing the number one team in the country and we need to just dial it back a notch so we can stay focused and just relax and have fun. All of those key little things are so important. And so I love sharing that story because it just shows that you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the right combination of people and you don't have people fulfilling all the important key roles, it doesn't matter.
Well, I think that story is a perfect segue into our next question. That comes in. Kelly is in Point Pleasant this evening watching our Hawk Talk. And Coach Kelly wants to know about the future of the program that you now oversee. What are the expectations in your mind? Do they continue to rise as far as Monmouth continuing to attain national rankings and getting those national rankings on a consistent basis, which the program has? So in your opinion and in your words, what is the future of Monmouth women's bowling?
I mean, our ultimate goal is to get and win a national championship. That's always been the goal. We just recently, our sport got AQs, automatic qualifiers. So we were completely an at-large bid sport for an 8 teams a year out of all 80, 85, 86 were eligible to get in that large bid. But now we have a 16-team selection that includes at large and automatic qualifiers for conference play. So I think that, was a game changer for our sport and for programs across the country, and now even gives us a greater opportunity to get us there. And so I think that, that's always the goal is to get to that championship and then win it. So, but we got to win conference first. So we'll start there. We'll start there.
And you've mentioned, and I think one of the things that's important for people to know is when you speak of conference affiliation, it's interesting. When you go to MonmouthHawks.com, you go to the bottom of the page and you see the different leagues Monmouth is affiliated with. There's 4 conferences that Monmouth is affiliated with when you factor everything in. So the fact that bowling, along with field hockey and football, one sport in one league in a different league than what Monmouth belongs to as a whole, which is the MAC. How has the experience in the league been for you, for the student athletes, as far as being an associate member of a conference?
I mean, the MEAC welcomed us with open arms and definitely does not treat us any different. They are fantastic. They provide all their coaches, equal support, equal access to information and resources they provide. And, I working with the coaches in the MEAC is also just phenomenal. Most of them I've coached alongside with since I started. And some of them were even coaches when I was an athlete. So it's just a really great group of people to work with on the day to day. And, again, the MEAC is just awesome. They're good. They love bowling. They're really supportive of the sport. They're one of actually the original conferences that's first sponsored bowling. So that was pretty cool. So there's a history there and a passion for the sport.
Coach, one of the things that I'm curious of, and we spoke at the top of our conversation here on Hawk Talk about you being so young as a head coach and you getting that opportunity. And you mentioned some of the mentors that you got to meet in that bowling community. But for me now, I'm kind of curious, what outside of the bowling world leadership did you seek? Were there maybe different figures that you look to for leadership. One of us, or one of the things we all get to look, or one of the people we all get to look up to at Monmouth is our athletic director, Dr. McNeil, who was a young woman coach before she became an administrator. So besides the world of bowling, what were the other leaders that maybe you looked up to, tried to pick their brain, read their book as far as what it was like to take over a team at such a young age?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, Dr. McNeil was a great resource right within the department. So definitely utilized her and Michelle Malia, Coach Malia as well. So that was amazing having both of them actually when I first started. Outside of Monmouth, I was still connected with. I was the president of SAC at Vanderbilt my senior year. I had served on the board and had been a member while I was a student athlete. And so I definitely kept in contact with my advisor there. And then also our sports supervisor, Brian Reese, who actually later on became an athletic director at Presbyterian right when we entered the Big South. So when they played us, he was able to come and see our bowling facility on campus, and just that full circle was really great to reconnect with him. Also, now the current athletic director at Vanderbilt, Candace, she was our compliance coordinator, and I've since reconnected with her and just have a great relationship that I'm building with her, just to share ideas and get that mentorship. Oh God, there's so many. Lori, there's this woman, Lori. She's the SWA at Stephen F. Austin. When I first got on the national committee, she was a great mentor for me there. And then also another great one was the head coach from Bethune-Cookman, who is now an administrator. He was the administrator at Bethune-Cookman when he was on the national committee and my co-chair with me. And now is an athletic director in South Carolina. He just recently transitioned roles. So I've been so lucky. And then obviously my former coach, John, he's been a great resource for me. And ironically, I think we've had a better relationship since I started coaching than we probably ever had when I was a student athlete, and student athlete coach relationship. We butt heads a lot, so I won't lie about it. But it's really cool coaching alongside him and learning from him now. And it's interesting how life, dynamics can kind of change your perspective and change your relationships in that way.
And to that point, again, being the only head coach in bowling history at Monmouth, you're in that very unique position of being able to have those relationships now yourself with a ton of alums. And we can draw the start of the program back to you. So about that network of alums, how is it keeping in touch with them? I know it's a very tight-knit group. It's a very tight-knit community. You ran through some of the names before, but how are they doing? And also, I know they're anxious to get out to see the team compete as well. So how is the group of alums doing throughout all this?
As far as I know, they're doing well. I actually, if they're watching, I'm sorry, I owe you guys Zoom happy hour. I know we were planning on it, and it will happen before the semester starts. So we're gonna make that happen. That's something that I know they were all excited for. So I definitely have to keep that promise. Actually, one of my alum, my heart goes out to her. She was supposed to get married in May. It was going to be my first alum wedding, student athlete alum wedding, and Caitlin Rath, I love you, girl, and I can't wait to see you and Zach. And I'm sorry that your wedding got postponed through all of this. She's been a trooper, but as some may have seen, Julie Bianco, she's a nurse and she has been working in the front lines. Want to thank all of our frontline workers. We have a few others working in the health profession, including Caitlin and Demi. We just have some amazing alum. And even one of our alum, Jackie Evans, is now assistant coaching at Fairleigh Dickinson University. She always, even though she was only with us for 2 years, she made a huge impact on our program, and she always had a passion for coaching. So I'm really happy to see her have that opportunity to pursue that passion, and definitely expect her to be a head coach one day. She's definitely got the qualities for it and the passion for it.
And that's a great point that you bring up also when we cycle back. And it was written in April, but very relevant now, that Hawk Heroes about Julie and the tremendous work that she's doing. And we send the well wishes that Coach just did out to all the frontline workers as well. That's on monmouthhawks.com. as well. It's in the news archive section on the bowling website. And, Coach, it's been a pleasure to watch the program grow and obviously get to the point where it is now and have to be flexible, be in different conferences, but to get to the point where it is now. And I know I speak for everyone with the Monmouth Digital Network when we thank you for being able to take the time here this evening and kind of take us inside that world of bowling and our viewers inside that tight-knit bowling community as well. And we do thank you. We do appreciate a few minutes and really wish you and the program the best of luck as we continue to navigate this situation, hopefully for a successful fall in the classroom, and then hopefully a successful winter on the lanes. Coach, thank you so much.
Thank you. Want to give one last quick shout out to Maritza. She's been on the front lines of protesting for Black Lives Matter and was actually on our panel a few months ago. So very proud of her as well. So again, great alum. And thank you so much for this opportunity to share a little bit of our bowling ball with everyone.
And Karen, thank you so much. And like we mentioned with Julie Bianco on that Hawk Heroes piece, you can also see Maritza in the Black Lives Matter MDN panel. It's available where all of the Hawk Talk recordings are. They're monmouthhawks.com. They're in the video tab here on Facebook, and they're also on youtube.com/monmouthhawks. For the head bowling coach at Monmouth University, Karen Grygiel, I'm Eddie Acapinti saying good night on Hawk Talk.